Salvete omnes, mihi nomen est Janaki. This is my project on Agrippina the Younger. Throughout her life, she made frequent and ambitious attempts for power, which was very uncommon at the time for a woman to do. By observing the remarks that Tacitus makes about her in his annals, we can get an insight into Roman views on the value of powerful women. My ancient source is Tacitus's Annals, a set of books which cover the history between about 14 to 68 CE. The author, Publius Cornelius Tacitus, lived from 56 CE to circa 120 CE. He wrote a number of works throughout his lifetime. Although he is renowned as a writer and historian, many of his writings show bias against women who don't exhibit the Roman virtues of piety, modesty, and adherence to duties. As a result, his work can help us analyze Roman values for women. Julia Agrippina, commonly known as Agrippina the Younger, was born around 14 CE to Hispania Agrippina, also known as Agrippina the Elder, and Germanicus. This is a statue of Agrippina the Younger. As you can see, her family was very well connected to the Julio-Claudian line, particularly to Augustus. He was her biological great-grandfather on her mother's side, and her great-grandfather by adoption on her father's side. Agrippina firmly believed in her own right to rule because of her blood, and was very ambitious and headstrong. Although these qualities were often admired in men, in women it was a different story, as we will see. Agrippina's first husband was named Domitius Ahenobarbus. They had one son together, who would become the Emperor Nero. When her first husband died, Agrippina began to search for a second one. She set her sights on the Emperor Claudius, who also happened to be her uncle. Claudius is pictured here. Although it was not strictly illegal, an uncle and niece marrying was considered to be incest and was heavily frowned upon in Rome. There were superstitions that this would lead to bad times for the nation, and also simply mutterings about how this was inappropriate for an emperor. There were three main women competing for Claudius's hand, each with her own set of supporters: Lollia Paulina, Aelia Paetina, and of course Agrippina the Younger. Claudius's advisors all gave him their opinions on the matter, and eventually he decided to marry Agrippina. As Tacitus writes, Agrippina's case prevailed, backed up as it was by Agrippina's charms. This word choice shows some bias on the part of the author. While he might praise a man in her situation for using charisma or persuasion, and he could have even described how Claudius and Agrippina seemed to be genuinely attracted to each other at first, the use of the word charm suggests that Agrippina was beguiling Claudius in some way. Although she was certainly motivated by the want for more power, using charisma and eloquence was a common persuasion tactic even among men. When used by a woman here, on the other hand, it is being vilified. This shows how Tacitus, and Romans in general, looked down upon women who held political ambitions or made attempts to get power. As soon as Agrippina was betrothed to Claudius, she began to make strategic political moves with her newfound power. She convinced Claudius to appoint her son Nero as his heir, and began to take over affairs of state with what Tacitus described as a stringent and so to say masculine despotism run with sternness and generally arrogance. This quote reveals a lot to us about his attitude toward Agrippina's behavior. The fact that he uses the adjective masculine, and not something more negative like wicked, implies that he sees nothing morally wrong with the way Agrippina is running things. But then why would he hate it so much, as he clearly shows? Solely because it is run by a woman. Words like arrogant are often used in the writings of Tacitus and other contemporaries to describe women who actually displayed determination, ambition, and confidence. The writers, whether intentionally or as a result of internal bias, paint these women in a negative light, when they would have considered a man in the same situation to be honorable and courageous. This statue clearly depicts the balance of power between mother and son. Although Nero was the one actually vying for power, Agrippina is shown here in an assertive pose, sharing the foreground of the statue with her son as she crowns him. From this statue, it can be surmised that the Roman population had a pretty clear idea of Agrippina's influence in Nero's life and prospects. In 54 CE, Agrippina began to worry about her son's status as Claudius's heir. Nero had just turned 16 and was now legally eligible to become emperor if Claudius were to die. Since his primary competition for the title, Claudius's biological son Britannicus, would not turn 16 for a few more years, this would be the ideal time for Claudius to die in terms of Nero's prospects. This was why, when Claudius suddenly died, almost everybody claimed that Agrippina had poisoned him with the help of the poison expert Locusta, who was the one in the picture and was associated with many sudden deaths of people in power. Predictably, Tacitus himself also blames Agrippina. He attributes thoughts to her, citing nefarious reasons for her actions. It is puzzling to read his certainty about her evil when he never presents clear evidence that she was the perpetrator in the first place. While the timing was quite convenient for Agrippina, Tacitus was in his 60s and didn't have the healthiest lifestyle, so it wasn't inconceivable that he would die of natural causes. The fact that Tacitus is so ready to accuse Agrippina is yet another example of the misogyny shown in this story. Soon after Nero rose to power, Agrippina began to irritate him. She made frequent attempts to influence politics and heavily criticized his romantic affairs. Eventually, Nero had had enough and decided to assassinate her. The details of this murder are unclear, but we do know that he first sent her out on a collapsible boat. Agrippina managed to swim to shore. Then, Nero found some other way to kill her and claimed to the public that it was in his own self-defense. To this day, Agrippina's legacy is one of manipulation, betrayal, and murder. Although she no doubt achieved great things during her time in power, all of the ancient historians who write about her focus on her supposed evil and the negative things she has allegedly done. As a result of the misogynistic bias in ancient Rome, the achievements of a bold politician have been lost to history. These are my works cited, and these are the visual aid works cited. Thank you for listening.